There's a reason there's almost 10,000 people.
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark.
This is like the best thing ever.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Caitlin Clark just did something in the WNBA that should make every single basketball fan stop scrolling, because this was not simply another good game, not just another fever win, and not even just another Caitlin Clark highlight package. This was the kind of night that quietly changes the way people have to talk about a player. Caitlin Clark walked onto the floor against the Dallas Wings with the Indiana Fever trying to protect their playoff position, with pressure building around every game, with fans watching every shot, every assist, every reaction, and by the time she walked off the floor, she had added another massive chapter to her already ridiculous WNBA story. 29 points, 10 assists, a huge Fever win. But the number that has people talking is not 29, it is not 10, it is 20, because that was Caitlin Clark's 20th career game with at least 20 points and 10 assists, and no player in WNBA history has more. Let that sink in for a second. Not more than Sue Bird, not more than Diana Taurasi, not more than Courtney Vandersloot, not more than any player who came before her. Caitlin Clark is only in her third WNBA season, and she has already reached a number that took other all-time great guards' entire careers to chase. But here is where the story gets even crazier. This was not a random historic night that came out of nowhere. It was another signal that Caitlin is moving into territory where comparisons are no longer optional. The comparison to Sue Bird is getting louder. The comparison to the league's greatest point guards is getting louder. And the question Fever fans are asking now is not, can Caitlin become an all-time great? The question is, how quickly is she forcing herself into that conversation? Stay with me, because the deeper you go into the numbers, the more unbelievable this gets, and the Sue Bird connection is the part that makes the entire story impossible to ignore. Before we break it all down, if you are a Caitlin Clark fan, comment CC22 below right now. And if you want real WNBA breakdowns with the records, the context, and the story behind the headlines, hit subscribe, because this season is moving too fast to miss anything. Now let's get into what actually happened.
Reality is coming.
Okay.
You know, there's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Of course.
And you see it on the NBA side, and you're gonna see it on this side, where you know you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're gonna come with some grown women that've been playing professional basketball for a long time. Not saying that it's not gonna translate, because when you're great at what you do, you're just gonna get better. But there is gonna be a transition period where you're gonna have to give your.
The Fever beat Dallas 98-87, but this was not one of those easy wins where Indiana just cruised from start to finish. Dallas came in ready to fight. Paige Buchers was aggressive. The Wings made Indiana work. The score was tight. The momentum moved back and forth. And for a while, it felt like the Fever were going to have to survive another stressful fourth quarter situation. But Caitlin Clark did what stars do when the game starts demanding an answer. She took over the third quarter. She scored 16 of her 29 points in that period. 16 in one quarter. That is when the game began tilting toward Indiana. It was not just the deep shots. It was not just the passes. It was the control. Caitlin had the ball. She read the defense. She saw where Dallas was trying to trap her, and she kept finding the decision that hurt them the most. Sometimes it was a three. Sometimes it was a drive. Sometimes it was a pass that made the defense look like it was one step behind. That is why the 10 assists matter as much as the 29 points. A lot of players can have a hot scoring night, but when you are scoring at that level while also creating 10 baskets for your teammates, you are not just having a great game, you are controlling the game. And that is exactly what Caitlin did. Kelsey Mitchell added 23 points. Aliyah Boston had 16 points and 12 rebounds. The Fever had contributions everywhere, but Caitlin was the player who changed the temperature of the game when Dallas was still hanging around. Now here is the milestone. Caitlin's 29 points and 10 assists gave her her 20th career 20-point, 10-assist game. That is the most in WNBA history, and the gap is what makes this wild. No other player has more than 10. Think about that. Caitlin did not just edge past a legend by one game. She has reached a total that is double the next best mark. That is not normal progression. That is not a tiny statistical footnote. That is a player creating a level of production the league has rarely seen. And if you are wondering why the Sue Bird conversation is everywhere, this is where it begins. Sue Bird is one of the greatest guards ever. She defined an era of WNBA basketball. She built a career around passing, poise, championships, leadership, and showing up in huge moments. You do not bring up Sue Bird's name lightly. But Caitlin Clark has now passed Bird on the career double-double list for guard. Caitlin reached 29 career career double-doubles in only 82 games. Sue Bird finished with 28 across 580 games. Now, does that mean Caitlin has already passed Sue Bird as a greater player? Absolutely not. That is not what this stat says. Sue Bird's legacy includes championships, Olympic gold medals, longevity, leadership, and a career that helped define the league. You cannot erase that with one number. But this is what the number does say. Caitlin is reaching certain production milestones at a speed that forces people to pay attention. She is not replacing the old guard. She is making the old guard part of the conversation every time she does something historic. And that is actually the most exciting thing about this moment. Caitlin is not breaking into a league with no history. She is breaking into a league built by legends: Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Lisa Leslie, Candace Parker, Cheryl Swoops, Tamika Catchings, Courtney Vandersloot, Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart. Players who created the stage, built the fan base, carried the league through years when people were not paying enough attention. Caitlin's rise is huge because she is doing it inside that history, not outside it. But the numbers are making the conversation difficult to avoid. 20 career games with 20 points and 10 assists, the most in league history. 29 career double-doubles already, past Sue Bird on that guard list, and it happened while Caitlin is still just 24 years old. That is why fans are losing their mind. Not because they want to disrespect the past. It is because they can see the pace. They can see that this is not just a player putting up nice stats. This is a player whose style changes the way teams defend. She pulls defenders out past the three-point line. She sees passes other guards do not see. She forces teams to decide, do we trap her and leave shooters open, or do we stay home and let her control the game? Either answer can hurt you, and Dallas felt that in the second half. But there was another detail from this game that made Fever fans nervous before they could celebrate. Caitlin appeared to twist her ankle late in the first half after stepping on an opponent's foot. For a moment, it looked uncomfortable. You could see the concern. Every Fever fan watching had the same thought. Please do not let this become another injury scare. Because Indiana's season has been full of pressure, and Caitlin's availability means everything. But Caitlin came back after halftime, and instead of looking cautious or passive, she came out and lit up the third quarter. That says something about her toughness, but it also says something about how important this run is for Indiana. The Fever are not just trying to pile up nice regular season wins. They are trying to establish themselves as a real threat. They are trying to prove they can close games, survive physical play, handle controversy, and win when the whole arena knows the ball is coming to Caitlin Clark. Against Dallas, they did exactly that. Now here is the part people are not connecting enough. Caitlin's 20th career 20-10 game is not an isolated record. It fits into a larger pattern. Just days earlier, she had already passed Sue Bird with her 29th career double-double. She had become the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 1,600 points, 600 assists, and 400 rebounds. And then against Dallas, she added another record that belongs to nobody else, the most 20-point, 10-assist games in league history. The question is no longer whether Caitlin has the talent to put up historic numbers. She has already shown that. The real question is, what happens if she keeps this pace for 5 more seasons? What happens if she stays healthy, keeps improving, gets deeper playoff experience, and spends the next decade playing this type of basketball? That is why the Sue Bird comparison has weight. It is not a cheap headline. It is not a fake feud. It is a timeline conversation. Sue Bird represents one of the greatest floor generals the sport has ever seen. Caitlin represents a new type of guard, one who can create from logo range, score at elite volume, and still hand out 10 assists like it is normal. Their games are not identical. Their eras are not identical. Their careers are not identical. But when Caitlin passes a Bird milestone, fans naturally ask, are we watching the beginning of the next great WNBA guard legacy? And that is where the debate becomes really interesting. Some people will say it is way too early. They will say Caitlin has not won a championship yet. They will say that legacy is built in May, June, September, and October, not just an August stat line. And that is fair. It is fair to say no one should crown a player as the greatest because of one record. It is fair to respect what Bird, Taurasi, and other legends built over decades. But here is what is also fair. Caitlin is not being compared to legend because fans are forcing it. She is being compared to legends because the record books are forcing it. When your name is next to the names of players who defined the sport, people are going to talk. When you set a number no one else has reached, people are going to talk. When you have double the 20-point, 10-assist games of every other player in WNBA history, people are going to talk. You cannot hide from that, and Caitlin does not look like she wants to hide from it either. Look at how she plays. She does not walk into the arena hoping to have a quiet 14-point night. She plays with confidence. She takes the difficult pass. She takes the deep three. She takes responsibility when a game is tight. And that is the biggest difference between a good player and a player who changes a franchise. Indiana believes it can win games because Caitlin Clark is on the floor. Opponents build their entire game plans around stopping her. Fans arrive early just to watch warm-ups. Road crowds react to her like she is the home star. That does not happen by accident. It happens because people know every game could produce a moment they have never seen before. But there is one warning in inside all this excitement. Records can become a distraction if a team starts playing for headlines instead of win. The Fever cannot afford that. The WNBA playoffs are coming. The competition is too strong. Teams like the Lynx, Liberty, Aces, and others are not going to care how many historic stat lines Caitlin has if Indiana cannot execute under pressure. That is the next step in this story. Caitlin has already proven she can create historic individual moments. Now the challenge is turning those moments into postseason success. And if she does that, if Indiana makes a deep run while Caitlin keeps putting up 25 points and 10 assists, then the conversation changes again. It becomes less about potential and more about legacy. It becomes less about can she be one of the greats and more about where does she rank. But for now, this moment belongs to the record. 20 career 20-point, 10-assist game, most in WNBA history. 29 career double-doubles, passed Sue Bird among guards. 29 points and 10 assists in a huge 98-87 win over Dallas. Caitlin Clark is moving fast, maybe faster than anyone expected. And while the internet loves to turn every milestone into a fight between generations, the better story is even bigger. The league's past and future are meeting in the same record book. Sue Bird's career gave young guards a standard to chase. Caitlin Clark is now chasing it at full speed. Diana Taurasi's career showed what longevity, toughness, and all-time scoring greatness look like. Caitlin is now writing her own version of greatness through playmaking and range. The legends are not being erased. Their names are becoming the measuring stick. And Caitlin keeps reaching it earlier than people expect. So now I want to hear from you. Is Caitlin Clark already the most dangerous offensive guard in the WNBA? Is it too early to put her in a serious Sue Bird conversation? Or does the record itself prove that this conversation has already started? Comment Sue Bird legacy if you believe championships and longevity still define the greatest guard. Comment Caitlin era if you think Caitlin is already changing what a WNBA point guard can be. And comment both if you think the truth is simple, the past built the stage, and Caitlin is making it impossible to look away. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because Caitlin Clark just set another record, and with the way this season is going, it may not be long before we are back here talking about the next one.